A very good morning to all of you. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome Dr. Bhuvan Lall for this public lecture. This is third in the series where GPARD is celebrating its silver jubilee from November onwards. We have identified some important lectures that need to go live. So while this lecture is organized for the young, bright Goa Civil Service Officers, a group of 20, we thought it appropriate to go live considering the importance of this particular lecture as well as the stature of the author or the speaker who is with us, who is kind enough to consent my request to come over here. And it's a great opportunity to all of you who are physically present here as well as who have joined on our YouTube channel. As you are all aware, the state is getting into a mode of young administration. The current Chief Minister, Honorable Shri Pramod Sawant, is injecting young blood, the knowledge workers in the administration. I have seen this administration during last 3 decades, and the knowledge workers injection is happening in last few years. So therefore, considering the feedback what I have from my faculty and the quality of officers that are chosen, especially this batch, we are very proud, we are very happy that the state is at safe hands, is going to achieve higher heights. It is in this context that, as I mentioned earlier, that this institute is headed by none other than the Chief Secretary of the state, and the Finance Secretary of the state as the Director General. Puneet Kumar Goyal sir is Chief Secretary, and Kandavilu sir is the Finance Secretary, Director General. So we are now trying to leapfrog to the next level of this institute, making a knowledge center and a very premier institute in the country at par with best of the institutes in the country. That is our goal and aim. Today we have with us Dr. Bhuvan Lall, an award-winning author and filmmaker. Dr. Bhuvan Lall wrote the best-selling biographies, The Man India Missed the Most, Subhash Chandra Bose, and the great Indian genius Hardayal. His latest books are India on the World Stage 2021, Delhi in the Era of Revolutionaries 1857-1947. He has finished writing his first novel, an espionage thriller, and wrote a film script on partition. He is currently working on the biography of Sardar Patel. Dr. Lall is now producing a Hollywood feature film on the life of Buddha and a global series on the Indian freedom movement. He has produced 2 feature films, Ramayana the Epic, Chittagong, plus a Hollywood TV series, Chance of a Lifetime. He also produced 35 documentary films for clients worldwide. I think I have a long list of his achievements, credentials, and we have given these details on our YouTube channel, where you can scan it and find out the further details. Dr. Lall is also a creative entrepreneur, investor with 3 decades of wide-ranging top-level decision-making exposure in Hollywood, Europe, and in India. I think better let me stop. Let us give him opportunity to speak. I request Dr. Seema to welcome Dr. Lall with a pot of flower. Thank you, Seema. I request Sir Dr. Bhuvan Lall to deliver his lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Seemaji, thank you very much for inviting me this morning to be here. Great pleasure, friends. It's always nice to be in Goa. And it's a unique opportunity for me to address young minds such as yours who are at the starting point of a career that will make this country proud. The future of our nation is in your hands. And I'm going to tell you a story about a man who invested in public administration, who had the foresight, who thought through, who understood the importance of the Indian public administration. The date was 21st April, 1947. The place was Metcalfe House, New Delhi. Sardar Patel, Deputy Prime Minister of India. India was not independent as yet. He was running the interim government. He came to the Metcalfe House and lectured the first batch of the Indian Administrative Service officers. Before that, for 200 years we had been governed by the British. The East India Company ruled the world really, from New Zealand, Australia, to rest of Asia, to parts of Africa, right up to British Columbia and Canada. It was for the first time a corporate organization had become a global entity, a multinational on a scale that had never happened before. Their objective was profit. And that profit had to come through a system of revenue collection which was global. So they invested themselves in two aspects of a global administration system. One was the army, which was supported by the navy, which would conquer the lands and control the environment. And second was the business side of getting the money back to London. For that, they did incredible amount of research as to how they would be able to accomplish this. They understood how the Chinese worked over centuries. They researched into Indian kings and maharajas, especially the Ashoka and the Chanakya period. And then they came up with a system of administration which eventually became the Indian Civil Service, ICS, open only to the British citizens. They would choose boys from the best of families in England who would study in Oxford and Cambridge, put them through a test, and send them to India. They would be paid a king's ransom as salary, and they would be given 1 million people to govern at a very young age. So a 23, 24-year-old person from England would come and become a district collector in India. And ensure that, over a period of time, he understood how every aspect of human life in a district is managed, administered, so that the British Empire benefits. from law and order to health to forests to public works department to tackling diseases to, education, everything this person was supposed to do. He was supported by the police officer, he was supported by health officers, he was supported by forest officers, but the system was created. And then they would graduate slowly to become commissioners, from commissioners to secretaries to Government of India, and then governors, governor generals, and eventually retire in England after 25, 30 years of service with a huge estate and live very lavishly. This was the best job on planet Earth. There was nothing better than that, to become an ICS officer. Very tough to become one, but once you become one, the world used to open for you. Because it was run by the British Empire and it was run with a profit motive, they understood that this could also lead to corruption. So they took money out of the equation by making the salary so huge that nobody could even corrupt you. This was a well thought out plan. Times moved on, and slowly they opened the gates for Indians to participate in the Indian civil service. Extremely difficult for an Indian to get into Indian civil service. They had to go to England to take the exam. You had to travel by ship. Normally took 6 months, later on about 6 weeks, and then 10 days, because you could go through the Suez Canal. And then study there, live in a difficult environment, learn Latin, Greek, languages that you had not learned in India, and then appear in this very difficult exam, and then there was a physical exam, and then get in. Very few Indians managed to get in, but slowly and steadily, people started getting in. There were also people who didn't understand the importance of this from an Indian perspective. Dadabhai Naoroji was an Indian living in England. He was a member of the parliament in England at that time. He called the Indian civil service, he didn't like it at all. He said it's neither Indian, nor civil, nor a service. So there was this distinction between the Indians living in India and the ICS officers of Indian origin who would come back from England. And they would kind of have an alienated effect, because they would rule over the Indians. And Indians had never seen this. But they respected them because they had power. Over a period of time, there was also an environment being built simultaneously for the freedom movement. And these people who were of Indian origin within the Indian civil service started feeling discrimination within the service with the British and the Indian civil servants. So that environment also got created. At that time, one of the possibly the most brilliant men born in this country, Aurobindo Ghosh, took the exam. He was the best student of St. Paul's School in England. St. Paul's was the best school in England, and he was the best student. He was the head boy. He was absolutely brilliant. He passed the exam. But on purpose, he did not take the writing test because he wanted to prove a point that though he qualified, he didn't want to go in. And he set a new standard. Somebody who could have got the best job on earth refused it because he was a nationalist. Later on, Aurobindo Ghosh was involved in the Alipur bomb conspiracy case, and he was brought to court. The judge was an ICS officer. And the judge who was judging him that day in the court was a person who had appeared in the same exam as Aurobindo Ghosh, and he knew that he had got less marks in Latin and Greek than Aurobindo Ghosh. So he was trying a person who was better than him in the exam. Time passed, and then there was another person called Hardayal, who was the best student India had produced. He was the first divisioner in India. He remembered 5,000 books, could speak 7 languages. He was 21. When he entered Oxford on a scholarship, Oxford had never seen such a person. He won 2 scholarships in Oxford itself. I have seen transcripts of Oxford in which professors have written, "We can't improve upon Lala Hardyal, he writes better than us." He too could have become an ICS officer, and he gave that opportunity. He resigned from the scholarships he had won. He walked away from this and became a revolutionary. Then came a third person, yet another person, Subhash Chandra Bose. Subhash Chandra Bose also qualified for the ICS. In fact, he topped the exam, but the British examiners were so taken in by his patriotic zeal that they didn't give him enough marks in the written test, in the interview. And still he got the 4th position. And he became the first Indian to have actually qualified and been accepted in the ICS to have resigned. And we all know that he became a legend in this country after that. So the 3 alphabets ICS elevated an individual to a level in this country that has never been seen before. At the time of Indian independence, when Sardar Patel was at Metcalfe House, India had about 1,000 ICS officers, out of which 270 had opted for Pakistan, 401 odd had opted for India. The rest were British. They were going back to England. Some were staying here and some were staying in Pakistan. So that was the plan. Sardar Patel decided that I need the ICS. I need the ICS because this country has to be ruled after the British leave. In England, there was a racist attitude towards the Indian people. That attitude was best demonstrated by Winston Churchill. He said, "We will leave India to men of straw, people who will not be able to control the environment after we have left, and the country will collapse." Sardar Patel was the exact opposite. He called the IAS, the IPS, and the central services the steel frame of India. So, from men of straw to the steel frame of India. And he proved it. How did he prove it? 21st April 1947, Metcalfe House, he gives that lecture. He tells the civil servants, your challenge is ahead of you. You have to now gear up. India is going to become free. In the next few months, what India saw had never been seen before in the history of humankind. Just before leaving, the British left. They were forced to leave. They had no option. They left. But they gave us a parting gift. And that parting gift was partition. They cut India into 3 parts. 2-part theocratic state called Pakistan, and 1 whole India. And the man at the helm of affairs at that time was Sardar Patel. The country overnight was engulfed in a communal fury that had not been seen before. Thousands and hundreds and thousands of people were being displaced. They were moving from one part of the country with all their belongings to another country. Many on foot, some by train, very few by cars, almost minuscule by plane. Law and order was breaking down. Things came to such a pass that murders were taking place right outside the houses of Prime Minister Nehru and Deputy Prime Minister Sardar Patel. The police was helpless. The British gave the freedom to Pakistan on 14th of August. That day, at midnight, India attained its freedom. But the map of India and Pakistan was not announced. The map was officially announced on 17th. Till then, people didn't even know which part of the world they belonged to, where will they go after this. So the main partition activity started on 17th, in which people actually saw that the city they lived in was now part of another country, and they would have to move away. Around that time, early morning, Sardar Patel was sitting in his house, dealing with multiple problems. He used to wake up at 4 o'clock, go for a walk. He lived in Delhi, central Delhi, just near India Gate. He would go for a walk to Lodi Garden at 4 o'clock. He would come back to his house, read the papers, start working from morning itself, every day. His staff, immediate senior secretaries would join him. Suddenly there was a sound. Somebody was being killed outside his house. So he rushed out. And he saw there was a mob trying to kill somebody. This is the house of the Deputy Prime Minister of India. He's standing there. And he's seeing this. He was a person who would never lose his cool, under no circumstances. So he looked at one of the ICS officers and he said, "Aren't you from Delhi? Go fix this." So the officer said, "What does Sardar mean? I mean, what does he want me to do?" So Sardar's principal secretary, V. Shankar, told him, "You've been just appointed head of Delhi. Just go and take charge. Do what you have to. You have our support." So this young man, just like you, just joined the service. The ICS officers who had joined the service after 1930 onwards, they were very patriotic by nature now, because they knew that India is going to get independence very soon. So they had become part of the system. Half of them were actually part of the national movement indirectly or directly. So he just went to the town hall in Delhi, in Chandni Chowk. There was curfew in the city. There was nobody on the streets. He walked into the town hall. There were 1 lakh people in the town hall sleeping around, sitting here, there. They had come from Punjab, Pakistan. They were refugees. They had no place to go. They had no houses. So he walked into the office of the town hall commissioner and he said, "I've been just sent by Sardar. I have to take charge of the situation. What do I do? Where do I begin?" The man had not slept for 3 days. He looked at him and he said, "I've been trying. You also try. Do what you can." There were health issues. It was the monsoon. There were housing issues. There were food issues. And of course, there were law and order issues. Everything had fallen apart. Suddenly, the high commissioners and the embassy officials of various embassies in Delhi, they started writing back to their governments that the India that we knew during the British period is over. The India that we know now is a ship that is going to hit the rocks and sink. There is total breakdown. At that moment, there was one man who transformed himself into a giant and decided to save his motherland. Sardar Patel. He told the ICS officers, if Delhi goes down, then we won't be able to save India. So do what you have to. Save the city. Suddenly, a new energy came into the room. People started working overnight. For 48 hours, they would work without sleeping. They would do whatever it took to remove the dead bodies from the streets, to stop the communal violence, to take charge of the police. Even the police was rebelling. You can imagine a situation like that. To safeguard the armory so that nobody loots it. To ensure that health facilities were not overburdened. Hospitals were being attacked by the communal riots. In fact, bullets were being fired at Sardar Patel himself. That was the situation. Day by day, from 24-hour curfews to 48-hour curfews to 72-hour curfews, to imposition of law and order, slowly and steadily, Delhi was being made to recover. But the population was overflowing. Everybody leaving from Pakistan was coming to Delhi. Trains filled with people, overburdened. They had to be provided homes. They had to be provided food, clothing. They had lost everything. And these were not just, regular people. They were professors, dentists, carpenters sitting in the same room with their families. It was a traumatic time. Law was not law, and men were not men. News came. A large body of people, refugees from Pakistan, are now walking on their way to India, and they're stuck by a riverside because of the rain, and they haven't eaten food for 3 days. How do you help them? Sardar Patel ordered the citizens of Delhi to make aloo puri. In each household, in each kitchen, the citizens made aloo puri and deposited them in the specific areas of their locality where they were picked up by the government. All of that was transported to the airport. And from the airport, they were flown by Dakotas near the border and airdropped to the people who were walking towards India so that they would get food. Imagine the scale of operations, imagine the limitations they had, imagine everything that could work against you was in front of you. There were financial constraints, there were weather constraints, there were health constraints, there were time constraints. And of course, lives were in danger. But he did it. This was not the only thing he did. He had another problem, a much bigger problem than this. The British actually wanted to partition India into India, Pakistan, and Princestan. They wanted to convert India into small states, 562 principalities, which would become individual countries by themselves. Complete balkanization of the country. That was Churchill's plan. There was one man again standing in the way, Sardar Patel. He took charge. He started talking to each and every prince, each and every king, and slowly and steadily took charge through an able body of civil servants led by VP Menon, who individually made all the states part of India. It was not easy. Nobody wanted to give up their state. Nobody wanted to participate in the Indian Union. But they believed in Sardar Patel. And he was very liberal with them, the ones who accepted his terms. He was very nice to people. He did things that nobody else accepted. His civil servants worked with him very closely, the Ministry of States. Simultaneously, the government of Pakistan was trying to lure these people, some of these states, to amalgamate with Pakistan so that they could create a corridor between India, right through India, between East and West Pakistan. He managed to even outwit them. All those princes came to Sardar Patel's side. So partition is happening at one end, this is happening at another end. And then 3 states of India do not accept Sardar Patel's terms: Junagadh, Hyderabad, and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir refused to sign with Sardar Patel. So he has to take care of that problem too. By October 1947, we are just 2 months into independence. There's a war. Mercenaries did attack Srinagar. And they are actually military people disguised as mercenaries. And they are ruthless. I've heard stories from people in Baramulla and places next to the border in which the people who came, they not only lifted every movable object from the houses they could raid, they took out the bulbs. They took out the holders of the bulbs. They ransacked everything. They were so gruesome that they killed everyone who came in their way. It was touch and go. The Indian government had not signed any agreement with the Kashmir government for military assistance. Sardar Patel sent his ablest people to go and look at the situation. VP Menon landed in Srinagar. The city was oblivious of what was going to happen. There were rumors that the raiders had arrived. There were all kinds of issues. This was the time of Dashera. The lights of Srinagar went off because the local power station was taken over by the mercenaries. And the Maharaja was in a tizzy. The man accompanying VP Menon on that trip to Srinagar later on became a very famous field marshal. His name was Manik Shah. He was colonel at that time. So he looked at the situation and he made his own assessment from a military perspective. VP Menon and Manik Shah returned to Delhi and reported to the cabinet. At that time, the Prime Minister wanted to talk about United Nations, wanted to talk about many other things, but Sardar Patel said, do we want Kashmir or not? So everybody said, yes, we must have Kashmir. So he looked at the military officer, Manik Shah, and he said, you've got your orders, go, do it. Overnight, all the planes in India, commercial and military, were requisitioned and brought to Delhi. Military was overnight moved at 4 o'clock in the morning, moved to Srinagar. The pilots who came in to land in Srinagar did not know where the airport was taken over by the mercenaries or not. So they kept flying over the airport a few times before they landed. And then they realized that the moment they landed, the military will have to start their action. Because the mercenaries were at the airport, at the edge of the airport. It was that close. 3 weeks ago, I met a former Chief of Army Staff, General V.N. Sharma. He was the Chief of Army Staff in 88, 89, 90, I think. 93 years old. Of all the people I've met in my lifetime, that one meeting I consider as one of the finest I've ever had. And I've also had the pleasure of meeting Field Marshal Manik Shah. So those people I've personally met. The reason I bring this up is that General V.N. Sharma, besides being Chief of Army Staff and one of the ablest chiefs we have had, has the unique distinction that his elder brother, Major Somnath Sharma, fought that war to save Srinagar. He was India's first Paramveer Chakra. Sardar Patel's problems didn't end with Kashmir. He was fighting the battle at one end. Simultaneously, he was trying to figure out how to deal with the Nizam in Hyderabad. He was also simultaneously dealing with the situation in Junagadh, which he successfully ensured in India's favor. There were 350,000 million Indians at that time. They were the largest body of human beings floating around in a democratic situation without a constitution. So Sardar Patel initiated the initial efforts to set up India's constitution, which is now considered globally as one of the finest constitutions the world has ever seen. From the day India's partition was announced, 3rd of June 1947 by Lord Mountbatten, there was a division of assets that had to be done. Now imagine a country's assets have to be distributed in a way that two new countries emerging out of that are happy. Assets mean railways, assets mean banks, assets mean all movable, immovable objects between two nations. Imagine the size of that task and the deadline ahead of you, 3 months. Imagine the scale of operations over a country as big as from Peshawar, Pakistan to Chittagong in East Pakistan. From Kargil to Kanyakumari. Simultaneously, he's handling this too. Again, he got the ICS officers of Pakistan and India to work together on this. And page by page, line by line, they looked at every single thing and they negotiated within themselves how to do this and close all pending issues to the satisfaction of both sides. Muhammad Ali Jinnah's right-hand man was in charge of the division of assets. He was one of the founding members and supporters of the idea of Pakistan and a member of the Muslim League, Abdul Nishad. He came to Sardar Patel at the end of it with folded hands. And he said, "You have been like an elder brother to us. You have been so nice to us. We will always look up to you." And this is a time when communal fury is at its max. In this period, Sardar Patel had to deal with a daily issue, a problem which he confronted on a daily basis in decision making. He was Deputy Prime Minister of India. He was reporting to a man and working with a person who was 14 years his junior. Sardar Patel was a very practical, successful lawyer. He was in fact the top lawyer of Ahmedabad. He was a chain-smoking, bridge-playing lawyer till he met Mahatma Gandhi, and when he met Mahatma Gandhi, the hero of South Africa, he was not impressed. It took him a while to get involved in the Congress. It took him a while to get involved in the freedom movement. But once he did, he gave up his law practice. That sacrifice, that lucrative thing. And you can imagine his competence that everybody went to him, and on one occasion he was fighting a case as a criminal lawyer in the middle of his speech like this, and a message came in the middle of his presentation to the judge. He looked at the message and kept it in his pocket and continued. That message was a telegram that his wife had died. So he raised his kids without a mother. His daughter, Maniben, became kind of a private assistant to him, helping him in daily work, looking after Sardar. He ordered his son never to come to Delhi because people will take undue advantage of you and try and influence me through you. Mahatma Gandhi said Sardar Patel is incorruptible because all the funds of the party were with Sardar Patel. And when he wanted money, he would call a businessman and he would get the money because they trusted him. He never touched the Congress money. They were funds for the nation. He lived a very simple life. He was dedicated to the nation. He earned his spurs in Kheda and Bardoli. In Bardoli, when he went for the Satyagraha, the women over there called him the Iron Man of India. He spoke a few words. He was not a man who made long speeches. But when he spoke, his words carried the weight of mountains. To give you an example, on 30th of September, the communal fury in Amritsar was so gruesome that it would make all of us shudder even today. Sardar Patel landed there. What Mahatma Gandhi did in East Pakistan and the border of India and Pakistan is well documented, but what Sardar Patel did is not known. He just casually went into a crowd of very angry people. He got up, stood on a bonnet of a car, and he gave an extempore speech. And he told them, stop this madness. We are a secular country. We have to change now. This cannot continue. That speech, that day, 30th of September 1947, saved lives. Thousands of lives. Possibly millions of lives. Communal fury stopped. Riots stopped. People are walking on planet Earth today because Sardar Patel gave that speech that day in Amritsar. That was the power of that man. He saved so many lives. On 30th of January 1948, Albuquerque Road, Birla House, Sardar Patel was in conversation with Mahatma Gandhi. The subject of discussion was Sardar Patel's resignation from the government. He said he could not continue anymore because it was becoming very difficult for him to work with the Prime Minister. And Mahatma Gandhi was of the view that the three of us have worked together so far. In the interest of India, we should continue to do the same. And we should not give up now. Whatever happen, however difficult it would be, we cannot give up because India needs us. And the two of you, the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister, have to find a way to work together, however difficult it is. And Sardar Patel left that room, accepting Mahatma Gandhi's advice. He went back home. He sat in his house, picked up a newspaper. Suddenly there was commotion outside the house. A man came in a car, rushing in. From the car he started shouting, "Where is Sardar? Where is Sardar? Kahan hai Sardar? Mujhe Sardar ke paas jana hai." So Moneyman saw the gentleman. He said, "What's happened? Sardar is right here in the office." He rushed in and he said, "Somebody shot Mahatma Gandhi. He's dead." Sardar immediately got into the car, went to Birla House, 5 minutes away from his house. Mahatma Gandhi's body was lying on the floor. Sardar went up to him, sat next to the head, absolutely like a stone, silent. Jawaharlal Nehru walked in, crying like a child, as if somebody had lost his own father. That day, at that moment, Sardar Patel embraced the Prime Minister. And from that moment to the end of his life, he did not break his promise to Mahatma Gandhi. He never resigned. He had a heart attack. He had severe health issues. He had huge problems in dealing with all the other issues of the country. He ensured Hyderabad became part of India. He ensured Jammu and Kashmir became part of India. But he never resigned. One of the greatest industrialists and a Bharat Ratan from India, J.R.D. Tata, was once interviewed. And he was asked, what was it like in that period? Incidentally, he was the only person in the Tata company at the highest level, at the board of directors level, he was chairman, who had not accepted being knighted. The rest of the board was knighted. They were all sirs. But he didn't accept being knighted. He was a patriot. So, J.R.D. Tata said that when he met Mahatma Gandhi, he was always taken in by the idealism, and he accepted that as a very nice moment. And he then said when he met the Prime Minister Nehru, he liked the guy, but he came back very confused. It was only when he met Sardar Patel that he realized that the country would be in great shape if Sardar was around. Very practical man. A person who would take decisions in the interest of the country each and every time. 15th December 1950, 9 o'clock in the morning. The phone rang at Prime Minister's house. V. Shankar, the private secretary of Sardar Patel, was on the phone from Bombay. And he said, Sardar is no more. That day, India lost Sardar Patel. Within minutes of this, Bombay shut down, Delhi shut down, Ahmedabad shut down, Pune shut down, Bangalore shut down, Calcutta shut down, Madras shut down. The rest of the country started feeling that they had lost one of the greatest men that this country had. But he left behind a legacy. And you are part of that legacy. The public administration system still exists. He knew in times of difficulty, in times of making the nation proud of its heritage, in times of planning the future of this country, the public administration system, the ICS, IAS, and the future generations of civil servants, they will come to the rescue of this country. So whatever challenges you have in your careers, whatever is going to happen in the next 30, 40 years of your lives and the lives of this country and the state, you have Sardar Patel to look up to. You have to remember, when things get difficult, things get tough, it's the tough that get going. You can't back out. You have to keep going at it. You have to accomplish what you are set out for. And that's how great nations are built. That's how you make your country proud of yourself. And that is why the largest and the tallest statue in the world is of Sardar Patel. It's not understood very easily. People don't know his story too well. That is why I'm writing his biography. Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you very much. We could have a feeling of watching a movie of Sardar in your narration. In fact, I was telling Hazel that It was like a description of a narration of a script of a movie on Sardar Patel, and while explaining how he put a foundation for Indian public administration. We are very grateful that a person who has done extensive research on Sardar Patel and still writing a biography, and who could give us such insightful information which otherwise we will not get in the history books and other places. You can imagine how this country is built, and over a period of last 75 years, how the country has progressed from a situation which Dr. Lall has explained to us. I think that feeling, idea of this lecture is to understand that where we were, from where we started, where we reached today. And now all of you have the responsibility of taking this country, this state to the next level. Now I open this floor for a question and answer session. Before, if there are any questions online, I'll take up questions from the officers here. I think pass on the mic. Yes, madam, yeah.
Good morning, sir. So, like you mentioned, Sardar passed away in the year 1950. And then we had the States Reorganization Act in 1956. So, do you believe if Sardar was around that time, this thing would have happened, or what would have been his take during that?
Mic.
See, it's always difficult to imagine what would have happened if this would not have happened or that would not have happened. I do not know what Sardar would have done relating to the states, but he would have ensured the union of India would not have got affected in any manner. His whole intention was very simple. He wanted India to be the foremost nation on planet Earth. He himself got into the Middle Temple in England, just to give you an example of what kind of person he was. He got the admission letter. The letter said, "We Patel." His brother was Patel by Patel. So his brother was also a lawyer. So his brother thought the letter has come for him. And Sardar Patel had saved some money to go to England to study late in life, because he was from a poor farmer's family. So he let his brother go and become a barrister. And then another letter came many years later, which was obviously his application was again accepted, and he went to become a barrister. And very little money in London. He would drink 1 glass of milk in the morning and go and study. He completed, because he had no option, he completed the 3-year degree in 2 years, and he topped the Roman law exam. So we just have to learn from what actually happened and not try and imagine what would have happened. And within the circumstances that he was in, you can imagine 1947 to 1950, the last years of his life, but the first years of India's life as an independent nation. So this man knew that his time was limited, but he was setting the foundation stones for the future that we enjoy today. So I'll prefer you if you ask me questions as to what happened rather than what would have happened. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. So recently we hear it a lot of times that the civil service is a colonial legacy. It has a colonial legacy, the bureaucratic system. So do you think today there is any real alternative to it?
Thank you. Good question. So just to let you know, my father was an IAS officer. I gave up that option. I have 40 members of my family who are in the service. 3 principal secretaries to the government of India are from my family. I believe without this service, we would have no India. It's not a colonial legacy anymore. It's a group of individuals selected very carefully in an examination which is, even now, 75 years later, examinations across the country in every state, they have not been doubted as exams which would ensure excellence in the government. The challenges that you get, the opportunities that you get to serve a nation as a civil servant are non-existent in the private sector. Nobody can replace the civil servant. It is an essential part. And the colonial legacy was more like, more on racial grounds at that time, and then eventually on economic grounds. I don't think that exists anymore. People have become very close to the people they work with. And some of you, I think all of you would know the local state language. You will work with people over here. So there is no disconnect. For a British officer to come from Brighton and live in Bhagalpur and then, figure out how the city works was a different mindset. And they were looking at, it's our, job to improve the quality of life of the natives. So that is what colonialism was all about. And they were looting us. It has been estimated the British Empire took $49 trillion worth of wealth from India over 200 years. So we have now an opportunity. I just landed yesterday in Goa for the first time. I've been to Goa many times, but I landed for the first time at Mopa Airport. And I was telling Sir, what a fantastic airport. And that's because the civil servants working to build that airport had the foresight and the vision to give the state a facility that would attract people globally. And I've been all over the world, and I got off the plane, and my wife immediately called me, and she said, what do you think of the new airport? And I said, I feel like I've landed in Europe. And it is like that. It's a beautiful small airport, but the potential is huge. So you have your work cut out. There is so many things to do. I grew up in socialist India. We had 2 cars, black and white TV, only 4 hours a day. The world has opened up today. Your jobs ahead of you are opportunities to do things that have not been imagined. You can take this country and yourself and your families and your state to a level that has never happened before in the history of humankind. You have that opportunity. Imagine. Colonial people did not think like that. Their job was to please their bosses in Whitehall so that the money from India to London was sent on a regular basis. They were revenue collectors for the British Empire. They had no interest in the nation. They had no connect to the nation, at least the British civil servants. Any other question?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
So, how was Sardar Patel different from PM Nehru ideologically?
Ideologically, they were similar people. Temperamentally, absolutely different. Sardar Patel's father was a farmer. He grew up in poverty. He built a life for himself. He was first generation rich. He did not have the benefit of high quality English education. He did not have many, many things in life. He was a fabulous administrator himself. He commanded the Congress party. He led the party. He held the party together. He was president of the party also. Without him being in the room, most decisions were not taken. He had to be part of all the decisions. Prime Minister Nehru was a different kind of upbringing, different kind of individual. Very globally attuned, very international in his outlook, British education, would be very impressive to people who had traveled outside India, who had seen the world. He could hold himself together in front of anyone, anywhere in the world. He did not think of himself as being less than anybody. He had a vision which was different for India. He had a socialist mindset, which was the prevalent mindset in the British education system. So he had adopted that. And the intellectual class of that period preferred socialism. Sardar Patel was not like that. He did not believe in socialism. He believed in entrepreneurship. He was from Gujarat. He believed in business. He supported the industrial empire of India. He wanted to get rid of the British colonial industries. He wanted India to build the industries. So those were different things. They were totally two different people, two very able people, one possibly slightly abler than the other, but very able. They were a team. And we were fortunate that we had both of them. And we would have been even more fortunate if one had lived longer. See, it is very well known now, it's in history books, it's documented that Sardar Patel was possibly chosen as the first Prime Minister of India, but overruled, and he was not made the Prime Minister. So he lost the opportunity, and he would never get that opportunity again. But he was a man who could come to a broader understanding of things. He could accept this. He could accept that the younger person was possibly more popular than him in public domain, and he was not that popular. He was well known, but not that popular, so it's fine. We'll still get the work done because India needs us. These were different class of people. They did not have petty issues to deal with. But then what happens once you are in that sort of situation, that environment, and you will deal with this, two very powerful individuals, they start having coteries. They have favorites. They have people who work with them 24/7 who would say, look, I am Sardar's man. And such people become a group on both sides, and then they create an environment which affects the working relationship on an overall basis. So they become two teams competing with each other. And unfortunately, once Sardar passed away, his team members were not so well known, but they became legends in their own right. VP Menon is regarded as one of the finest civil servants this country has ever had. He was the person who helped the integration of the states. H.M. Patel, who was the right-hand man of Sardar Patel, ICS officer, became finance secretary, defense secretary, cabinet secretary, also finance minister of India in Morarji Desai's government. V. Shankar, who was principal secretary to Sardar Patel, later on became chief secretary of Maharashtra and Gujarat presidency, I believe. And then he became principal secretary to Prime Minister Morarji Desai. So all of these people had their careers cut out, and they did extremely well for themselves as a nation, made this country stand on its feet at a time when it was very difficult. Any other question?
Good morning, sir. Thank you for the lecture. Sir, I had a question relating to the relationship between the bureaucracy and the political executive.
Yeah.
Today we see that there are a lot of problems in that relationship. But at that time, Sardar Patel and VP Menon were seen to be that pair which were faced with so many obstacles, and they overcame those obstacles so well, and they were supposed to be that star pair of a bureaucrat and the minister. So, can you throw some light on that relationship, and also what are some learnings for today which we can take from that?
Very good question. Excellent question. See, in your career, you're going to face this right through. There'll be a elected official and there will be a civil servant. In Sardar Patel's time, the respect for the government ministers and people of that nature was very different. All the civil servants had actually seen the ministers participate in the freedom struggle. Some of the civil servants had actually jailed these ministers. They had actually seen them go through a lot of strife for the freedom of the nation. So the respect level for Sardar Patel was immense. It's like, you meet Dhoni. You have immense respect for him for what he has done. You've seen him play. You meet Virat. You have immense respect for what he does. The last over against Pakistan, 13 balls, nobody can do it on earth. So that kind of respect for your political leaders. You're willing to do whatever to do, help him. That unfortunately with passage of time we have lost. Now we have people who are elected because of a variety of reasons. Now, Sardar Patel instilled in the civil service as well as the political class at that time an understanding. He said, if you want yes men around you, you will never succeed in life. He told the ministers. He said, for a political person, you should have somebody advising you who may not agree with you. And it is important to have a person in the room who does not agree with you. Because you must hear that perspective. And it's an important perspective because maybe you are wrong. And it is not an ego thing, it's a way of working. You have to find a way of working. In today's environment, it's extremely difficult for a civil servant sometimes to accomplish the goals that they have set out for because of interference, because of various other factors. It's a huge challenge. It's a different kind of challenge. With experience, with working models, with seeing how things work, you will yourself realize sometimes it's an uphill task, sometimes it will be easy, but it will eventually have to come down to having a common goal for both the persons, to be on the same page really. And that same page will only be to the larger benefit of the people of the country and the state and the final goal of uplifting the quality of life of everyone. If that is the goal, then there can't be two ways of thinking. There has to be a same mindset. So we have to evolve as a civilization, as a society, in which our political class and civil servants start working with the same goal in mind. I think with passage of time, with new technologies coming in and the new way of thinking, India is slowly and steadily moving in that direction. You will start seeing that financial transparency has become a major change agent in this country. A majority of the payments I'm doing nowadays, even 20, 25, 30 rupees for parking in Delhi by Paytm. So, the other aspects of making money and financial corruption and things like that unfortunately affected some of our political systems in the past will disappear because you can't do it anymore. Technology will not allow you to do it. And same for the civil servant. As long as your goal is to improve things from what they were, as long as you want to leave your impression that you were here, you did this while you were here, and that is known. You have an excellent example of Sir here. I have seen him build the Mopa airport. And it's just by coincidence that I landed there yesterday. So he has invested so much energy in that project, and it's a world-class place. I mean, you just have to go and visit it if you haven't. It's a world-class place by any standard. And it gives me an impression that if that can be built in Goa, anything can happen. In fact, sir, I would like to recommend you, all of you will be probably in very powerful positions at that time. 2036, 2040, India should host the Olympics. And that event should take place in Goa. Ideally suited for Olympics. You have everything here. So you will be in very powerful positions at that time, 15, 20 years from now. Please keep one ticket for me. Is that it?
The quality of questions that have come up, that indicates the quality of the team, officers here. And there are two questions that are there which I would like to add value to that. Please. One is there an alternative for the existing administrative system? It's a debate, basically. Let me tell you, without this system, we would not have come so far during last 75 years. What we have achieved is because of that system. There is no press button solution to change the system. However, the country is saying improvisation of the system. You will find probably 20, 25 years down the line, unknowingly, the system is slowly transformed. An example to you is that 2 years, not 2 years, 3 years, this is the 4th year, where for the first time in the history of the Indian administrative system, where 10 joint secretaries were appointed from a private sector on very key positions in Delhi, including one in Ministry of Civil Aviation. They were not Indian Administrative Service officers. Those positions were held by Indian Administrative Service officers. They were made open to the private sector people who had expertise in these particular sectors. I know personally many of them. I too had applied for it. I could not get selected because I am not from private sector. Right? Now, director level positions are being opened up for the private sector. Who is Secretary Space in the country? Who is Secretary Space? Who is the ISRO chairman is the secretary? Somnath. It is not by any Indian administrative officer. Key technical positions are now being given to the people. Other than this particular, it is a blend of experts and the Indian Administrative Service. That is, a transformation is slowly is happening. This is the first part of it. The second part is that I'll tell you, this is the only service that empowers you to do anything that you want. So much powers that officers have if they want to do. You can transform a village. You can transform a place, what powers you have. That will and that vision should be there with the officers. That constitution and the rules, regulations empowers the officers if the officer is willing to do anything. That such kind of powers doesn't exist with anybody. It's only willingness and the dedication, passion that is required to be there with the officers who want to do it. Now I want to, the second part of it is the personality, right? Sir mentioned about Sardar Patel, then he also mentioned about Kohli, Dhoni. You need not look at outside. You have one hero within the state with whom I have worked. Name Manohar Parrikar. I have worked very, very closely with him. I will tell you, the political interference and all those things, they're a part of our administrative system. We have to live with that. And you have to, as sir said, you have to gel with that and give your best output. But however, the stature which Manohar Parrikar had, may not be correct to compare him with the stature of Sardar Patel. I think I will be not doing that, should not do it. However, it's a similar kind of a stature Manohar Parrikar had, that I had that opportunity to work Mopa Airport, free hand. You want to do anything, please go ahead. Just tell him, sir, this is what I want. I was in Delhi for Supreme Court cases to get out of that Supreme Court environmental clearance suspended. Given free hand, whatever you want to spend, but I need that environmental clearance restored. Daily 8 o'clock in the morning, a briefing to him. Finally, it is a commitment. If the political power wants, I had been to Ayodhya just 3-4 days back. If government wants, if the system wants, administration wants, I'll tell you, you can transform, you have to go and see what is happening in Ayodhya now. I am personally, if government wants, Tillar irrigation projects can go for 40 years not to happen, particular project. Or if government want, it can be done in 1 or 2 years. First IFI, sir, was a part of. He has worked with Manohar Parrikar, sir, hand in hand. In the first IFI, Inox was built, the outer bridge was built, the entire infrastructure was built in a record time. For early completion, per day incentive was given to them. And the chief minister himself used to move around overnight. So I'm telling the system, the political class and the administrative class, if there is a willpower to do, if there is a vision to do, nothing is impossible. This is only the government that can do. So I think what is required is only a passion to do and passion to work. I'm extremely thankful that Dr. Bhuvan Lall sir has come down here, spoken on such an important topic, introducing Sardar Patel to us, and also how the Indian public administration evolved. On behalf of Government of Goa and on behalf of GPARD, I profusely thank Dr. Lall for coming over here, giving this lecture. Thank you very much. Anyone of you want to also thank on behalf of other, please.
So on behalf of all my colleagues here and all the viewers online, I would like to thank you for this wonderful session. It took us in depth of Sardar Patel, and I could just visualize the impact that you created within your speech, and it was just like a movie that you took us through, and it was a great experience, and just as sir said also. So thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful lecture.